Hi, this is India with Bags and Lifestyle. Thank you so much for watching this video. Let's go ahead and get into it. So I thought that I would end out this, I guess, kind of Bermuda series that I have. So first I had the vlog. If you have not watched that video, definitely make sure to check it out. I will link it down below. And then also I did a separate video where I talked about what I got from Bermuda. So definitely check that video out as well if you have not seen it. So this video will be talking about, as you can see from the title, just some things that I thought are interesting things to know about traveling to Bermuda if you've never been there before. So I do travel for work, and so I've had the pleasure of going to Bermuda 3 times this year, and also had the pleasure of not having to pay for my trip in Bermuda because I had a client out there, so they had to pay for my expenses to get out there. I also had the unique experience where the government actually purchased our airline tickets for us as well as made our hotel reservations. So as far as pricing goes, that kind of thing, I did not have to figure that out myself because I traveled for work. But what I have seen, because my husband and I were talking about him coming out there for a trip with me at one point, was just kind of how the prices are. And so they do range, and probably as far or probably outside of peak season, like a lot of places, they'll be less expensive, but they are a pretty penny to get to, and they are not inexpensive. So even though Bermuda is not that far away from the East Coast, at least, and to me, as far as like travel distance goes, it did not seem like I was traveling to another country, even though you really are. But anyway, I would say the flight prices could be anywhere from maybe like the 600s all the way up to over $1,000, just depending on the time of season and how close you are booking those tickets to when you want to travel as well. So definitely plan it out, try to plan it out in advance. And the hotels seem to kind of range around the $300-ish mark and go up from there when we're talking about peak season. So definitely consider that as well. Now, let's go ahead and get into a few facts. So first off is, at this point, at least at the time that I'm recording this video, which will be in late October, you'll see this video in November, is the fact that there is an application fee. So I don't know how long it's going to remain in place. I don't know whether it's long been there before Corvisha. We'll call it Corvisha. Sorry, I caught myself. But basically, there is an application to get in where the government has to allow you to get in. So that was recently lifted. Not the application at least, but the testing requirements to get into the country was lifted. So before the testing requirements were lifted, you did have to have a negative test, depending on whether it was the PCR or the antigen test. And so the timing depended on that, and it could be as early as 4 days out or as late as, I think it was 2 days before your departure, you had to have that test, that negative test. They have lifted that, and as of October 25th, I believe it is, you no longer have to have a negative test to get into the country, but they still want vaccination proof. So through that Bermudian website, you do have to apply to enter the country. They want to know where you're staying. They also want to know whether you have been vaccinated, and they also want to know how long you're going to be in the country, and whether wherever you're coming from wants a return test before you leave, so that way they can schedule that too. So just keep that in mind. Definitely check out the website if you do plan on flying there anytime soon or anytime in the future. Just make sure you check out those travel requirements. Thankfully, like I said, they have lifted. Hopefully it will remain that way. Where as far as the pre-test before you arrive comes into play. But basically, you have to give them an email, and then they will email you back with your basically approval that says, okay, we approve you to come into the country. Before they approve it, they have been asking us, at least, and my coworkers, have we had any symptoms? So that's kind of one of the requirements too. So just make sure you're reading the website and understand what it's saying. And then also, like I said, you do have that $40 fee that you do have to pay. Next up, so the next one on the list is going to be, they do have their own version of cabs. So, and I wrote the name down. I didn't write the name down, but basically they don't use an Uber. They have their own kind of Uber-like system over there. You can also hail a cab the normal way that you would think about if you were in a big city like New York or Chicago. So, and there are taxis hanging out around the hotels, but that is something to know. And if you feel like you're going to be using cabs a lot, and you don't want to have to pay cash, or don't want to have to figure out how to get a cab in some places, then make sure that you download that app. I'll check that out. Next up, yes, and also they are expensive. You're on an island. The island, I think, is only about 22 miles long, okay? So it's not a big, plot of land, but also it's very expensive, and as you can imagine, it's in the middle of the water. So it's expensive to get things on it, and it's expensive to get things off of it. So just keep that in mind when you're wanting to run around and do transportation. Taxis do take US dollars if you are from the United States, and they actually, if you don't go through this app system to get a cab, then they take cash, and they will take either their local currency or the US dollar. Now, with that said, it's about a 1-to-1 kind of equivalent, so you don't have to worry about an exchange rate or fee or anything like that. But don't be surprised if you give the cab driver USD and they give you back change in Bermudian dollars. So just know that. But just know that if they give you $2 back, it's the equivalent of $2 US dollars, but you obviously are going to need to convert it before you go back to the United States, because we don't take their money the way that they take ours. So definitely bring a lot of cash with you, especially if you're planning on riding taxis. I did have a coworker that did try out the bus system, and what she told me was that it was fairly easy to figure out. Also, obviously, if you ride the bus, it's less expensive. So if you did want to do that, then that might be an option for you. Also know that if you are taking a cab to a beach, make sure that you have a plan to get back home. And the reason I say that is myself and several coworkers did take a cab from our hotel to Horseshoe Bay Beach. Beautiful. They had a beautiful trail, walking trail. So if you saw my other video where I did have the vlog and we were walking, well, you didn't see us walking, but you saw the shots of the ocean. That was at Horseshoe Bay. And it's further out from where our hotel was at that point. And so it took a while for us to get back home is what I'm getting at. So we called a cab. The cab said they were coming. We waited a while. The cab did not show up. Luckily, me and another coworker were leaving together, so we were going to ride back and split the cab fare, and we happened to catch a cab that dropped someone else off. So we decided to take that cab since we had been waiting like 30 minutes and our other cab had not come. So what that nice person told us was that basically when they hear beach, they think of, okay, you got sand, you're wet, my car is going to be a mess, and I will have to clean it out after I drop you off before I can pick up the next person. So it's more work involved than they really would prefer to deal with. So they said more commonly, people don't like to pick people up for the beach. So just know that. Know that in advance. Maybe download that app or have a plan to figure out how you're going to get back home if you don't have a cab, or try to time it to where you can just, get your cab back as soon as you find a cab, because had we not got that cab, we would have been waiting probably over an hour and would have probably ended up having to ride back with our coworkers who was at a bonfire. All right, so next up is going to be, they do not allow visitors to rent cars. So I probably should have said that first to segue into the cab and the taxis, but anyway, that is why you're having to use cabs or use their local system to hire a cab to take you places. I think you can get these little one-person little bitty cars to drive around in. I heard that you could possibly rent those, but if it's 2 people or 3 people, 4 people, then you're not going to fit in those because that's not a car. Just keep that in mind. But yes, they do not allow you to drive, which when you see the roads out there, they are very narrow. They dip, they turn, they twist really quick. There will be portions of kind of cement and rock that stick out from on the road, and you don't really want to drive. Once you see that, you don't really want to drive. You really need to know those roads, and as a visitor, you're not going to know them. And of course, for U.S. citizens, we drive on the opposite side of the road, so that's also something to get used to. And so also, all of those things just snowball into a potential problem. So you probably would be best out not renting a car, and they don't let you rent a car anyway. So there you go. All right, next up is going to be, Bermuda does have a variety of different cuisines. I'm not sure what I mentally was expecting. I knew I was expecting seafood, but when I Googled, I guess I just was very surprised with all of the different types of cuisines you can get on the island, and I thought it was a really nice thing. There's a French bakery out there. There's several different Italian restaurants. There's nice, also you have like seafood restaurants, of course. Definitely check out the Bermudian lobster. If I have a photo of my lobster, if it's a pretty good photo, I will throw that up here so you'll see that on the screen if I can get it. But the lobsters are huge, like huge. You do have to tell them in advance. The restaurant I know we were going to try them out, we did have to tell them in advance, but they're big. Yeah. I don't even know what to say, but they are huge. So definitely experience a Bermudian lobster if you can, because they are enormous. Next up, they do have an activity. I don't know whether this is just for the summertime or not, but on Wednesdays, in my brain, I think of it like Wind Down Wednesdays. It's something like that, where there's street vendors. They block off the downtown area. There's music. There's different street vendors, whether that's homeware, products you can buy, or whether that's also food vendors are out there too. So it was a really nice time. It started at like 6:30, I think, and then I think it ended somewhere around maybe like 9:30 or something like that. So I definitely know in the summertime they were doing that. So our first trip out there was September, and we went to that activity. So definitely check that out. Check out their website to see kind of all of the local things that are going on in the area. But that was really nice to experience. And then we experienced that for a little bit, and then we got on the Uber Vita, which is basically a kind of like bar-like taxi. So it was really neat to have a cruise around the island, and it's pretty affordable. It's only like $20. They do it, I think, on Wednesdays as well as on Fridays, and then I think there are like more than one time, so maybe like 2 times that they do it both of those days. But definitely check it out. Uber Vita, like I said, and there's a bar, so it's $20 to get on. The cruise is about an hour and a half, somewhere like that, and was really nice experience. So you can buy drinks, they play music, and then you can sit there and enjoy seeing the water, seeing the beautiful properties that you can see from the boat that are facing the ocean, which are, which you probably are likely prime real estate. So it was really nice to do that activity, and very inexpensive. There are all other ways you can charter boats and all of those other things too. But if you want to find an inexpensive way to do it, that is one of those ways to see the water, get on a boat, and have some drinks while you're at it. So definitely check that out. Next up is going to be for the flights. So for the flights, so far we have the client that we have has arranged our transportation to and from the airport, and then also to and from the client site that we're visiting. Now, with that said, they have been getting us to the airport. We've been leaving the hotel to get to the airport 3 hours early. Now, they've been doing that because there is a cutoff time. I don't know exactly what time TSA, not TSA, but I guess like the border folks. I don't know what I'm trying to say right now. But basically, there's a cutoff time to where before your flight, you need to be through customs. Now, the unique thing is that you're thinking probably if you've been out the country and you live in the United States, you're going to have customs when you get back. Well, for Bermuda, customs is in Bermuda. So when you check into your flight, you go through U.S. customs and then you get on your plane and then you go where you need to go when you land on U.S. soil. So that is a little bit different from like my previous experience when I came from Paris and we went through customs when we landed in Philadelphia. So that is something to know. Also know that because it is a smaller airport, basically, they aren't open all times of the night and all times of the day. Also know that there are cutoff times to when they will let you through. So if you're not through at the time that you need to be through for your flight, you will miss your flight. So just keep that in mind to make sure you're getting to the airport early enough. We did get to the airport this last time super early, and we were there before they could check us in. So I was there probably 20 to 30 minutes before they could even check our bags. So, but just know that there is a cutoff point. Make sure you do get to the airport early. Also, if you just happen to time it to where there's so many people at the airport, you will end up with lines because there's not a lot of staff that work at the airport. So just know that and know that in advance. Next up is going to be the dollar and the dollar and local currency. They're about 1-to-1 basically. So I think I alluded to this already earlier actually when I talked about the taxis, and the taxis only taking cash, and they do take US cash. Just know that you may get change back, so just reminding you of that. So I think these are some helpful things to know. And also a lot of the hotels are basically their own resorts basically. So probably if you've been to like Mexico, Jamaica, places like that where basically it's all-inclusive location, a lot of the hotels are set up that way. But definitely research, look into what is offered, because especially if you're not able to, you don't have walking distance to just like, I like to get out and walk places. So pay attention to where your hotels are. Also pay attention to the property as far as like how your hotels are set up. Is there a lot of outdoor space? Do they have a pool? Do they have somewhere for you to lounge? Do they have a space for the beach? A couple of places that I've been to, I've stayed at only two different types of hotels, or two different brands, I guess I should say. But definitely make sure you research that, look into those a little bit more, because that could make or break your trip, especially if you're planning on just relaxing around, lounging, and there's not a lot of beach property, or there's not a lot of outdoor space for you to do that. Some hotels, depending on where they're located, are a little bit better than others. So just make sure you keep that in mind. Hopefully this information was very helpful to you and will help you on your next trip, or at least entice you to think about going to Bermuda. It was never anything on my mind, but I went there for work and I did really enjoy myself, and I wouldn't mind going there for a vacation either. So thank you so much for watching, and I will talk to you again soon. Bye.